It is usually believed that all organisms on Earth are involved in host-parasite interactions, either as a host or as a parasite. The parasite entirely depends on the host for its growth, reproduction, and survival. The metabolic resources necessary for the vital functions of the parasite are provided by the host, which in turn receives nothing from the parasite. This results in a net negative effect of parasitism on host fitness, as the resources consumed by the parasite are no longer available for the growth, reproduction, and survival of the host. Parasites are widespread among living organisms, as they are thought to represent more than 50% of all species on Earth. From the simplest viral particle to avian brood parasites, parasitic lifestyle has regularly arisen during evolutionary time. Host-parasite relationships. The one used here distinguishes between two major types of parasites, endoparasites and ectoparasites, according to location. Ectoparasites are attached to the outer surface of the host or are superficially embedded in the body surface. Some ectoparasites complete their entire life cycle on the host surface, whereas others attach only to feed and then detach. Other ectoparasites initially deposit their eggs on the host's skin, but the eggs later detach and mature in soil or water. Ectoparasites are often arthropods that attack the exterior surface of a host. For example, the common tick is the carrier of the extracellular bacterium Borrelia burgdorferi, responsible for Lyme disease. The bacteria are introduced in the host when the tick bites him or her to obtain a blood meal. Endoparasites live within the body of the host at sites such as the alimentary tract, liver, lungs, and urinary bladder. The most common parasites in canine population are intestinal protozoa, helminths, and respiratory nematodes. Medically important parasites are animals that live in, take nourishment from, and thrive in the body of a host, which may or may not harm the host, but never bring benefit. They include unicellular organisms such as protozoa, malaria, giardia, amoebiasis, and cryptosporidium, and helminths, or worms, which are categorized as nematodes, cestodes, and trematodes. For example, humans contract malaria through the bite of an Anopheles mosquito infected with a protozoan parasite, P. falciparum. Fleas are a vector for the gram-negative bacterium Yersinia pestis, which causes bubonic plague. Parasites that do succeed in establishing an infection inside an individual may go through various life cycle stages, some of which may be intracellular and others extracellular. Mutualism is an association in which the mutualist and the host depend on each other physiologically. A classic example of this type of relationship occurs between certain species of flagellated protozoans and the termites in whose gut they live. The flagellate, which depends almost entirely on carbohydrate diet, acquires nutrients from wood chips ingested by the host termite. In return, the flagellate synthesizes and secretes cellulases, cellulose digesting enzymes, the end products of which the termite utilizes. Incapable of synthesizing its own cellulases, the termite is thus dependent on the mutualist, and in turn provides developmental stimuli to the mutualist and a hospitable environment for reproduction. If the termite is defenated, it will die, and conversely, the flagellate cannot survive outside the termite. Mutualism is an interaction between two populations that positively affects the fitness of both populations, where the fitness of a population is defined as the success of a population in propagating its genetic material. An example of mutualism that directly impacts reproductive success is the relationship between plant and pollinator. By definition, a pollinator aids the plant in its reproductive success. In turn, pollinators gain resources, either by gathering nectar or by exploiting a potential plant on which to ovideposit, thereby increasing their reproductive success as well.
What are some external and internal parasites in the human body?
There are a variety of external and internal parasites in our environment. The external parasites, the common ones are the lice, the ticks. They are found in our environment, most specifically if the environment is dirty. They just fly over our hair and our skin, and then they suck blood in order to live. So that is what you call parasitism. It is a kind of relationship that the parasite thrives on taking advantage of the host. So the host is being harmed. That's parasitism. One is benefited, one is being harmed. Of the internal parasites, the most common ones are these the worms. They enter our body through like ingestion. We ingest the egg or the parasitic stage of their life. For example, we have this the ascaris, the trichuris, the more of a species of the worms. We ingest them through dirty food, and then they grow in our body. Some are excreted, some are they travel throughout our body, from the intestines to the lungs to the heart, anywhere actually. But the principle is they live inside us, doing harm to us. The most common harms that they do is they obstruct our intestines. Sometimes they migrate to the lungs, which is very harmful. So worst is they can cause death in humans.
How do we get rid of these parasites?
How do we get rid of them? Of course, we really have to diagnose if there are parasites inside in our body. Most common of which is we get samples of our, let's say, feces, our bodily secretions, and then we diagnose that. And there are, of course, medications for that, for those parasites. We are all vulnerable to infestation of these parasites, but the principle is we really have to be, hygienic, and of course be educated of how they enter our body so that we can prevent them. Especially food handling, cleaning of the environment. Most common of the flaws in our hygiene is this how do you call that, anal oral route. We ingest food that are already infected with these parasites, and then they grow in our body.
How do we detect the presence of internal parasites in the body?
The basic, or in general, in our nutrition, they can because they feed from us, so we will be nutritionally be deprived of our health.
What is the worst case of parasitism you've seen in patients?
Yeah, like what I've said, worst case is we get operated. Like, if example, there is a bolus of ascaris in our intestine, and then they obstruct our intestine, so it obstructs our gut. So sometimes we go into surgery to get rid of these parasites. They can cause a lot. They can migrate into our lungs, to our heart. So imagine having worms in our lungs, so we cannot breathe. They infest us, so it really can cause harm in our body.
Do you have any pets at home which have had external parasites?
A lot of pets.
And
Pets,
internal.
pets equals pest. Yeah, most common the dogs, no? They are infested by these lice. They thrive on the skin and then they suck blood.
How do you
Sometimes we get skin infections. Most common skin infections, human skin infections from the dogs, lice of the dogs.
How did you get rid of these parasites?
How do you get rid of them? Well, that's basic. You just have to uh, clean the dog by giving them a bath or shampoos that are with antimicrobials. Don't let them roam around dirty places.
How can we prevent internal parasites?
Of course, we really have to be cautious on eating, especially the street foods, on dirty food, no? Because a lot or most of the parasites thrive on dirty food. So once we ingest them, we'll be infected. So avoid eating street foods, and when you cook at home, be sure that all the ingredients that you bought would be clean and fresh, of course, and especially in the cooking. It's true, there are parasites that thrive on raw food.
Are there any advantages to parasitism?
Advantages, of course, of the parasite is very advantageous. I don't think there's any advantage.
In the Philippines, elders say that kids get their lives from playing under the sun. What do you think is the basis for this common notion?
I think it's based on their experience. And once the kids are exposed to sunlight, of course they perspire, and I think perspiration plus, of course, they don't take a bath, so it's dirty. So it's a breeding ground for lice. So hygiene, of course, is of utmost importance.